Hollywood loves a safe leading man until he plays queer desire so well, it stops looking like acting. Tonight, we're counting down 10 stars whose chemistry blurred the line between role and rumor, where privacy becomes armor and every glance becomes evidence. This isn't about outing anyone, it's about the pressure, the whispers, and the cost of being too believable. Ready? 1. Daniel Craig, the spy who took off the armor. Here's the part nobody says out loud. James Bond wasn't just a role, it was a contract with the public. You don't play the world's straightest fantasy for 15 years and walk away clean. You inherit expectations. How you stand, how you touch, what you're allowed to want on screen. Bond is a brand of don't ask, don't soften, a billion-dollar posture. That's why Craig's post-Bond choices feel like sabotage in slow motion. In Glass Onion, the queerness is domestic, almost casual. So casual it lands like a dare. Then Queer arrives and the camera stops protecting him. No heroic angles, no invincible swagger, just need, sweat, longing that looks messy on purpose. The old armor doesn't fit, and he doesn't tailor it. He drops it. Now imagine the rooms you never see. Agents weighing international markets, PR people predicting headlines, brand partners quietly wondering what kind of man they're paying for. Not because Craig owes anyone a label, he doesn't. But because Hollywood still sells masculinity like a product you can return if it gets complicated. There's also the straight tax, the quiet pressure to keep the story simple. A public marriage becomes a convenient full stop for strangers. Case closed, don't ask. But the work he chooses keeps reopening the file. And every time he refuses to do the classic no homo reassurance tour, it reads like defiance. And this is the silent fame tension. The industry celebrates range when it's safely framed as art, yet punishes any hint that the performance might be personal. So Craig plays it the most dangerous way. He refuses to explain. He doesn't perform comfort. He lets the work sit there like a lit match and watches the audience do what audiences do, turn scenes into evidence. So what are we really watching? A legend reclaiming his body from a franchise? A calculated prestige pivot? Or a man testing how far an icon can go before the world demands he put the armor back on? Tell me in the comments. When a straight-presenting icon plays queer desire this raw, is it allyship? Or is it Hollywood letting him borrow danger without ever paying the full price? 2. Jacob Elordi, the heartthrob built to be worshipped and blamed. Jacob Elordi is a marketing department's dream. 6'5", carved jaw, the kind of face that makes posters sell before the script does. And that's exactly why his soft moments hit like contraband. Because the system didn't hire him to be tender, it hired him to be certain. Then Euphoria gave us Nate Jacobs, violence, control, and that unmistakable subtext fans couldn't stop circling. The rage that looks suspiciously like fear of being seen. Not confirmed, not denied, just a character written like a locked door. And Elordi played it with a tightness, jaw clenched, eyes refusing to blink, that made people ask the question anyway. Saltburn weaponized him differently. Not the predator, but the prize. The camera turns him into the sun and lets a man's obsession orbit openly. And here's the quiet scandal. Elordi doesn't flinch from being the object of the male gaze. He lets the longing land on his skin. That permeability is what lights fandom up, and what triggers the backlash. Because the internet loves one accusation more than anything: queerbaiting. If you dress fluid, play into homoerotic tension, take queer-coded projects, but never offer a label, are you cashing a check from the pink dollar without paying the risk? Or are you simply refusing to hand strangers your private life as proof? Notice how the culture treats his public dating life like an alibi. Headlines with women become a convenient case closed. But the roles keep reopening the file. That's the glass closet economy. Ambiguity as currency, privacy as armor, and fans doing forensic analysis on a 2-second glance. Now add on swift horses. Desire hiding in motel rooms and glances that last a beat too long. It's the silent fame blueprint. Love as a secret, masculinity as a performance, silence as survival. So what's Elordi really doing? Playing with fire because it sells? Or exposing how fragile straight masculinity is when the camera stops protecting it? Comment your verdict. When a heartthrob keeps choosing roles that blur the line, is he inviting the rumor? Or is the rumor just the price we charge men for being emotionally readable? 3. Barry Keoghan, the chaos that makes desire look dangerous. Barry Keoghan was never built to be the safe crush. He's the kind of actor Hollywood used to keep in the shadows. Sharp features, restless eyes, a face that feels like trouble before he speaks. And then Saltburn happened, and suddenly the internet couldn't look away. What makes Keoghan so queer-coded to audiences isn't a label. It's the way he plays hunger without shame. Oliver Quick doesn't ask permission to want. He studies, imitates, worships, invades. The desire is obsessive, messy, and, this is the key, uncomfortably intimate. Not romantic in a postcard way. Intimate like a secret you'd delete from your phone. Saltburn even turns certain scenes into instant folklore. Moments so notorious people talk about them in code, like you have to earn the right to say them out loud. Keoghan performs those beats with zero apology, which is why some viewers read it as too real, and others call it pure provocation. Either way, the algorithm wins. And that's where silent fame lives. The gap between performance and projection. People don't know where to place him. Is Oliver gay? Bi? Something darker than categories? Keoghan refuses the neat box because the character is a weapon built out of longing. The result? Viewers start treating the performance like a confession, even when it's clearly a craft choice. Behind that is a modern pressure. The prestige freak. Hollywood rewards men for being extreme as long as the extremity can be packaged as edgy art. But once you become the face of a viral homoerotic film, the questions stop being about acting and start being about you. Your personal life becomes a shield strangers point to as a full stop, case closed, while they keep replaying the scenes that reopened the case. So he does what the smart ones do. He plays on the line, but keeps the door shut. No grand statements, no tidy explanations, just a public persona slippery enough to survive the gaze. Here's the fight I want in the comments. Is Keoghan exposing how desire turns into power? Or is he profiting from queer aesthetics while staying protected by ambiguity? And if the work is that good, does the answer even matter? 4. Harry Styles, the pop star who turned a question mark into a brand. Harry doesn't just sell music, he sells permission. Pearls on a man's neck, a dress on a stadium stage. A smile that never confirms what the internet is begging to file as evidence. And the most profitable part? He said he doesn't feel the need to label his sexuality. No clean sentence for people to screenshot and close the case. That kind of ambiguity sounds freeing. Until you realize it's also a cage made of flashbulbs. Because the moment you refuse a label, the world replaces it with theories. The fandom writes 1,000 endings for you, and every ending demands you pick one. And if you don't, they call it strategy. They call it bait. They call it cowardice. They call it iconic. Same silence, different knives. Then he takes My Policeman, a story where queerness isn't aesthetic, it's illegal. Styles plays Tom Burgess, a policeman trapped between duty, fear, and a love he's trained to treat like a crime. The film is literally built on the pain of living in secret, marriage as cover, desire as evidence, time wasted trying to be normal. And here's the silent fame tension. When someone like Harry touches a closeted story, is he lending mainstream oxygen to a queer tragedy? Or is he borrowing queer pain for prestige while staying safely unpinned in public? Even his promo sparked backlash, because every time he tried to universalize it, some viewers heard, "Don't call it what it is." So, what do you think is really happening with Harry Styles? Is he protecting a private truth from an industry that punishes specificity? Or is he mastering the most powerful currency in pop culture, the unsolved mystery? Drop your take in the comments. No fighting dirty, just real debate. And if you want more stories where fame is a mask and silence is the price, hit subscribe. 5. Richard Madden, the man who closed the door and made the rumor louder. Richard Madden has the face of a prince and the discipline of a spy. When people tried to turn his private life into a public referendum, he didn't deny, didn't confess. He shut the door. His answer has basically been, "My personal life stays personal." He doesn't talk about relationships. And that's where the drama begins, because in modern celebrity culture, no comment doesn't read as boundaries. It reads as a clue. The most silent fame detail? He reportedly said he'll wear the same clothes days in a row, so paparazzi photos look like one day and can't be milked into a narrative. Think about that. A leading man literally using wardrobe repetition as armor. That's not vanity. That's survival behavior in a system that sells your proximity to desire. Now rewind to Rocketman. Madden plays John Reed, Elton John's lover and manager. Charm that turns predatory, affection that comes with invoices. The role doesn't just ask him to play a queer relationship, it asks him to play power inside intimacy. And once you do that convincingly, audiences don't stop at the character. They start scanning the actor for the same shadows. So here's the real question. Is Madden's silence a shield because Hollywood still punishes men for being too readable? Or is the silence itself a strategy that lets the fantasy stay profitable for everyone? Tell me below. When a star refuses the no homo performance, does that make him braver or just better at control? And if you like this kind of analysis, subscribe. Silent fame lives in the parts they won't say out loud. 6. Paul Mescal, the softest kind of devastation and the price of being believable. Paul Mescal doesn't play desire like a statement. He plays it like a bruise you keep pressing to see if it still hurts. In All of Us Strangers, his character Harry isn't just a love interest, he's the ache of loneliness given a body. Their romance is tender, almost quiet. And that's why it wrecks people. Because it doesn't feel performed. It feels like two men finally exhaling. And once an actor becomes that believable, the audience does what it always does. It stops separating craft from confession. Mescal has talked about being drawn to characters regardless of sexuality, choosing depth over labels, and he's also acknowledged that labels becoming less important can be a privilege. That line matters because it admits something uncomfortable. Some people get to be fluid without paying the same price others paid just to exist. Then comes The History of Sound, a queer romance that premiered at Cannes 2025 and released in the US on September 12, 2025. It's love through gestures, through music, through what isn't said, basically silent fame in period costume. When people tried to slap the Brokeback label on it, Mescal pushed back, calling those comparisons lazy. Because this story isn't just repression porn, it's a different kind of tenderness. So here's your debate prompt. Is Mescal part of a new era where straight identified actors can safely explore queer intimacy as universal love? Or does that safety itself reveal the uneven math of who gets celebrated for softness and who gets punished for it? Comment your verdict, and subscribe if you want the next entries, because from here on, the list gets even more dangerous. 7. Josh O'Connor, the man who makes silence feel like skin. Josh O'Connor doesn't seduce the camera the way a typical heartthrob does. He doesn't sell desire with swagger. He does something riskier. He makes you feel what a man won't say. That's why queer audiences clock him instantly, because closeting isn't always a locked door. Sometimes it's a mouth that learned to stay shut. In God's own country, the love story isn't polished. It's mud, rain, bruised hands, and a kind of intimacy that looks almost too unedited to be acting. The secret isn't just that the scenes are raw. It's that O'Connor plays shame like a second language. The way he looks away a half second too late. The way he flinches at softness like it might expose him. If you've ever lived in a body that had to pass as fine, you recognize that choreography. Then, Challengers turns the volume up, but he keeps the same weapon. Restraint. He doesn't play attraction like a label. He plays it like a magnetic pull that makes men behave irrationally while pretending nothing's happening. That's why fans argue, is that chemistry or confession? And honestly, the more convincing he is, the more unfair the questions become, because the audience starts treating talent like testimony. Here's the part people don't talk about. Doing queer intimacy this convincingly can trap you in a different kind of box. Not gay or straight, but the guy we're allowed to desire as long as he stays undefined. The internet romanticizes it. Casting directors calculate it, publicists fear it. And he's the one standing in the middle, trying to keep his private life from turning into a courtroom exhibit. So what's the real cost? Maybe it's not losing roles. Maybe it's losing peace, being endlessly interpreted, being turned into a debate topic, being asked to explain a performance like it's a confession booth. Tell me in the comments, when an actor makes queer longing feel this real, are we witnessing brave art? Or are we watching a man get punished for being emotionally readable? 8. Nicholas Galitzine, the prince who admitted the guilt out loud. Nicholas Galitzine has the face Hollywood prince on fantasy. Soft eyes, royal bone structure, the kind of beauty that makes audiences trust him before he speaks. And then he uses that face to tell stories about men who can't breathe inside the world that loves them. That's the hook. He keeps playing characters trapped in elegant cages. A prince whose duty is a muzzle. A lover whose desire is treated like a scandal. The secret isn't the sex scenes or the chemistry. Those are the obvious fireworks. The secret is that he understands the logic of the closet, the micro-hesitations, the public smile that hurts, the way longing shows up as anger because longing isn't allowed to exist. And then he said the quiet part out loud. He's talked about identifying as straight and feeling a kind of guilt about taking up space in queer stories. That single admission is gasoline for silent fame because it exposes the real machine. Hollywood loves putting queer love in the hands of a safe leading man. It makes the project easier to sell. Less risk, more reach, more awards potential, and the person who benefits also becomes the lightning rod. So he's stuck with two audiences pulling in opposite directions. Mainstream wants him to remain a clean fantasy. No complications, no labels, no headlines that could scare advertisers. Queer audiences want the work to mean something, because it does mean something. Representation has a body count. It has history. It has consequences. And fandom? Fandom turns chemistry into a religion. Every interview becomes a forensic lab. Every smile is proof. Every boundary he sets becomes suspicious. So, what's he supposed to do? Give strangers a label as a receipt? Or keep the line closed and let people accuse him of profiting from the question mark? That's the heartbreak. Sometimes the most respectful thing an actor can do is protect privacy. Yet, privacy is exactly what the internet refuses to let him have. Drop your verdict in the comments and subscribe if you want the next two, because the list only gets messier from here. 9. Taylor Zakhar Perez, the nice guy who refused to perform straightness. Taylor Zakhar Perez walks into a room like a campaign promise. Smile, warmth. That effortless America's boyfriend ease. And that's why his choices hit harder. Because he could have cashed the safest checks forever. Instead, he stepped into a queer love story and played it like hunger, not homework. The secret sauce in red, white, and royal blue isn't just chemistry. It's certainty. He doesn't treat attraction like a phase or a punchline. He plays a man realizing he's been emotionally starved, and once he finally tastes honesty, he can't pretend it didn't change him. That's why so many viewers said, "No way, this is just acting." And that's where the pressure starts. Because the industry has an unspoken rule. If you're straight and you play queer too well, people will ask questions that aren't about the role anymore. Perez didn't feed the machine. He's pushed back on intrusive sexuality questions and framed it as basic professionalism. It's nobody's business. And weirdly, that boundary became its own kind of romance to fans, like watching someone protect a private self the way queer people had to protect themselves for decades. Here's the emotional twist. For a lot of viewers, his refusal to label isn't mysterious, it's familiar. It's the feeling of living in a world that thinks it deserves your truth as proof. The difference is, he's famous, so the demand is louder, meaner, and monetized. So what do we do with him? Call it allyship? Call it strategy? Maybe it's both. But the inspiring part is this. He chose tenderness in a culture that pays men to be numb. He treated a queer love story like it deserved blockbuster sincerity. Your turn. When an actor draws a hard line around privacy, is that respect? Or is it the modern version of a closet door with better lighting? Comment your verdict. 10. Drew Starkey, the new face of ambiguity and why it feels so real. Drew Starkey is the perfect closing note because he represents the next era, the actor who doesn't sell you an identity. He sells you a question. People knew him as a TV heartthrob. Then queer happens, and suddenly he's sharing the screen with Daniel Craig in a story that isn't cute, isn't safe, isn't packaged for comfort. His character isn't written to reassure you. He's written to make you doubt what you're seeing. Is this love? Is it power? Is it survival? And Starkey plays that ambiguity like a blade. Here's the secret that hooks viewers. The most haunting intimacy isn't always the kiss. It's the moment after. The pause, where someone decides whether to stay or disappear. Starkey's performance lives in that pause. He gives you just enough warmth to hope, then just enough distance to panic. And for anyone who's ever loved in secrecy, that push-pull doesn't feel like fiction. It feels like memory. That's why he's dangerous for Hollywood's old rules, because he's not doing the classic "I'm straight, but" press routine. He's not doing the clean denial either. He's letting the work speak and letting the audience argue. That's the glass closet economy, but it's also a mirror. We keep demanding certainty from people because uncertainty scares us. And here's the inspiring part. Regardless of his label, the art is proof that queer stories can be told without sanitizing the mess, without making desire palatable, without apologizing for how complicated humans are. So I'll leave you with this. Maybe the point isn't whether Starkey is queer. Maybe the point is that he's helping mainstream audiences sit with a truth queer people have always known. Love doesn't become less real just because it's hidden. If you felt something in this list, don't just scroll away. Comment which name shocked you the most and why. And subscribe because the next videos go deeper. The roles they took, the rumors they never answered, and the price of being seen. So, were these just masterclasses in acting or proof that Hollywood only allows intimacy when it can still be explained away? I want your verdict. Which performance felt the most real and why? Drop it in the comments, respectfully. If you like stories where fame is a mask and silence is currency, hit subscribe and turn on notifications. Next video goes even darker. The roles they refused and the price they paid.